All right, let's talk about the digital SAT math section. I know. It can feel like a pretty tough nut to crack, but today we're going to break it all down. Exactly what's on the test, how its new format works, and most importantly, how you can build a smart strategy to walk in on test day feeling totally confident. So, let's just dive right in.
Okay, let's be honest for a second. If you're prepping for the SAT, chances are you've typed something like SAT math dumps into a search bar. It's so tempting, right? The idea that you could find a magic list of questions that will show up on your test. It's a super common search, but you know what? It's also a really risky one.
And this quote from our source material really just nails it. The digital SAT, it's a whole different ballgame compared to the old paper test. The best, and frankly, the safest way to prep isn't about chasing shortcuts. It's all about practicing in a way that actually feels like the real, modern exam.
So why does the SAT math section feel so tough for so many people? Well, it's not always about the math itself. It's actually the whole experience wrapped around it.
It's really a mix of things, right? First, you've got these math topics you've seen before, but now you're under a ticking clock. Then they throw in these subtle little shifts in wording that can totally trip you up. And here's the big one. The test is adaptive, meaning it changes based on how you're doing. On top of all that, if you're using old practice books, they can actually do more harm than good because they don't prepare you for the digital format at all.
All right, so to beat this thing, you gotta know what you're up against. Let's pull back the curtain and look at the exact structure of what you're going to face on test day.
First things first, the math section isn't just one giant, endless block of questions anymore. Nope. They've broken it down into two separate, timed parts. They call them modules.
And you get exactly 35 minutes for each of those modules. That gives you 70 minutes total for the whole math section. This structure means that how you manage your time inside each 35-minute chunk is a huge deal.
Across those two modules, you're looking at a total of 44 questions. But it's not just about the numbers, it's about how these questions get to you. And this brings us to probably the single biggest change with the digital SAT.
This is what we mean by adaptive. Here's how it works. You finish the first module, and behind the scenes, the test is grading you. Based on how well you did on that first set of questions, it decides whether to give you an easier second module or a harder one. Now, why does this matter so much? Because if you're aiming for a top score, you have to get into that harder second module. Your entire path is decided right there, in the middle of the test, which is why starting strong is so critical.
Okay, so we've got this structure down, but what kind of math are we even talking about here? Well, it's all broken down into 4 main content areas, or domains.
This chart makes it super clear. Just look at that. Algebra and advanced math together make up a whopping 70% of the entire exam. 70%! The other 30% is split between problem solving and data analysis and geometry and trig. This right here tells you exactly where you need to be focusing most of your study time.
And this table gives us a bit more detail. Algebra is all about your fundamentals, linear equations, systems, that kind of thing. Advanced math is where it gets a little trickier, with things like quadratics and exponential functions. Problem solving in data is all about ratios, percentages, and being able to read charts and graphs. And finally, geometry and trig covers your shapes, angles, and the basics of sine and cosine. It's a lot, but it's all stuff you can absolutely master.
So knowing what's on the test, that's half the battle. But the other half, the really important half, is how you prepare. So let's talk about the smart way to get ready for this.
This comparison really lays it all out. The old way, using junk material, doing random practice problems with no timer, it just doesn't work anymore. The smart way is way more strategic. We're talking timed sessions that feel like the real test, obsessively reviewing every single mistake you make, and practicing with a tool that actually understands this whole adaptive format. Because at the end of the day, your goal isn't just to memorize a bunch of formulas. The real mission is to build skill in 3 key areas. Accuracy, so you're getting the answers right, pacing, so you don't run out of time, and a deep understanding, so you can handle any curveball they decide to throw at you. Now, to practice the smart way, you're going to need the right tools. The source material points to platforms that are specifically designed to feel just like the real digital SAT, like Easy Quiz, for instance. These are the kinds of tools built for timed practice, and more importantly, for helping you figure out why you made the mistakes you did. The best tools have features like these. You need an online simulator to practice under that real-time pressure. That's how you build your pacing. A mobile app is awesome for reviewing concepts whenever you have a spare 5 minutes. But the most important thing, the absolute game changer, is a tool that helps you do a deep dive review of every single question you get wrong. That is where the real learning happens.
And, this is really what it's all about. A good prep strategy does so much more than just teach you math. It takes all that pressure and anxiety you feel about test day and transforms it into a feeling of control, a feeling of true confidence.
So, I'll just leave you with this question. Now that you've seen the breakdown, now that you know the difference between the old way and the smart way, are you ready to prepare with a real strategy instead of just winging it? Because that, my friends, is how you really crack the digital SAT math.